So the main function calls always calls this run app, and which that is what starts any Flutter application. And usually the app here, the Xylophone app, this can be any the name that you give for the class, is the sort of root widget of the application. So that is your main widget, and everything else is nested within your other widgets. So everything in Flutter by default you should understand are widgets. So um like just to understand like how it is, um so like all all um, all components in a mobile screen that you see, if you open up like the WhatsApp mobile app, you can see contact names and the title of the contact, the first last text, maybe a green icon because you have not or if it's like the number on the right that you can see usually when the number of messages that you have not opened yet. All these are will be widgets if you are building the same screen in yourself. So usually it's called a widget tree. So that means all the widgets are nested within the main widget. So if Shashank has probably shown you an app or two, you might have understood the usual a few like common widgets you might have heard of is first is the material app is a widget. So material app is basically it's sort of the root widget of your application. So it provides the theme, what kind of navigation, let's say do you want it like certainly your app will follow a certain color theme, do you want it always to be in dark mode or light mode, you can set all those things in your material app, so that goes to your entire application. Another widget you might have seen is a scaffold. So the scaffold is sort of your basic structure of your application. So it gives you the app bar. So let me just pull up. So if this is how your WhatsApp looks. This is the app bar. So the WhatsApp screen, the WhatsApp title window is called the app bar. So that is usually set by the scaffold. You can add the app bar in it. Um, you can have like, and then you have the body where everything else gets settled in. So why I'm calling it a nested tree is because within the body come your other sort of other widgets. So these are all widgets. These are all, even the camera, image, everything will be widgets. So there'll be other, there are multiple other widgets like columns, rows, text, let's say an elevated button, um, center, maybe sized box, image. These are all widgets that you can use that you will be using in the upcoming classes. Also, feel free to stop me anytime if you have any doubts in anything here till here. But that's sort of generally how the Flutter application, the main things that you will be seeing. So coming to the next thing is any widget can be of two types. One is stateless, and the second type is stateful widget. So when we talk about stateless widget, it is something that means a widget that will not change after the APK has been built. So always, um, let's say this camera image will never change, right? Or this chats, whereas chats is a stateful widget because this will change depending on the number of unread messages. If you have seen, if you have unread messages, you will get a number on the right of this chats usually. So based on that, these are that will become a stateful image like calls 5. That becomes a stateful widget because it the state of that specific widget changes after it's built, depending on how the user has interacted with the app. Whereas there are some widgets that don't change its state at all, and those are stateless widgets.
Yeah, Shubhra, actually there is a one question.
Mhm.
What Pranav asked, what is elevated button in previous slide?
Yeah. elevated button is just a type of button that we use in Flutter. It is so there are multiple types of button: text button, raised button, and elevated button. So it will give you like a this kind of UI. If you want to sort of create this submit button or any of these kind of UI, then it gives you an elevated button by default. After that, you can customize it based on how you want it. So
Okay.
there are different button classes in Flutter, and you will be able to like the most commonly used, at least from my side, has been elevated button. But you will see a lot of other buttons that you can use. So you have the close button, the back button, the checkbox button, and everything. I think as and when, yeah, elevated button. End drawer button is like you see the three option menu on most screens on the right side. That when you open it, it usually opens account or my profile or something. That's called a drawer in um, yeah, this usually in an app, if you click on the left or right, this three button thing menu that opens up your profile, account settings, login, logout page, that is called a drawer in Flutter. So there's an end drawer button and everything. So I think as and when you build more apps, we'll get used to it. Um, I hope that answered your question. So, going back to stateful and stateless, this is a very important concept, and you will probably like get used to it as more the more you code, the more apps you build. Let's say you want to build a sort of an app that just shows your business card. Okay, so just like a app that'll have a photo of yours, name, LinkedIn profile. Um, it's just like a visiting card, but on your app where people can just scan or you just pass it on to someone. That might be a stateless. If it doesn't change with anything that you're doing on the app, then that entire app might be a stateless app. Whereas any other app that as and when the user interacts with it, any widget has to change its color, text, or anything. It becomes a stateful widget. So by so like how a stateful like widget it sort of changes dynamically, right? So it sort of like it first it goes through a certain cycle. So it creates the state, initializes it, and then when the UI is being built, when you build your app, it builds the widget. Then you the most important thing that I'm sure it will be covered in this is called set state. So every time you want the entire UI to be sort of rebuilt, or especially for this widget to be rebuilt when a user presses this button, you always need to call something called set state, otherwise it doesn't get built. Let's say when you have they seen the counter like the sample application that Flutter provides,
Yes,
the
yes.
counter application.
Yeah, it was shown on first day.
Yeah, so if you remember that application, there was a button on the bottom right corner that as in when you pressed plus plus plus, the number increased on the screen. So that number, for it to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there is a set state called every time that button is pressed. So it's that when you write the code, it'll say in that elevated button or floating button, it'll say on pressed, set state that number plus plus, change the number. So this set state is a very important thing. Um, Never forget to not write it. And finally, there'll be, I think, dispose. So that is when you need to clean the UI widget. Um, so, yeah, this is sort of like a little overview of how the Flutter sort of structure looks like. Just to go into the folder structure. You can ignore these. So you might have noticed this is how the folder structure looks like. So if you, so we all know Flutter is a cross-platform mobile. It's a it's a framework used to build mobile apps for Android and iOS. So it's basically the main advantage of using Flutter and Dart is that it's a single code base for mobile Android and iOS. So when we build when we initialize a Flutter app project, by default we have the Android folder that contains a native code for Android, and by default we have the iOS folder that contains a native code for iOS. I think by default in Android, if I'm not wrong, it is in Kotlin. No, this is in Java. Yeah. So it has the, I mean, depends on what you choose while you're building it. The native code gets compiled into either Kotlin or Java. But the things that you need to know, you need to still make changes to would be your manifest file. So just to write down the important files that you need to know is in Android, you will have the Android manifest file. So this is the file that contains all the permissions or sort of any kind of um, yeah, mainly the permission, intents, any metadata basically. Suppose when we say let's say you have to build an app that shows the weather based on the location you're in. So if you had an app like that, the first pop-up that you see would be this app is requesting for your location. Do you want to share it once or use it all the time or never? So for that pop-up to appear, you need to give this give that specific permission in the manifest file. So any permission that you use, if you don't mention it in the manifest file and use it without it, it'll Android doesn't allow you to do so, because it goes against the sort of privacy rules. So Android manifest.xml is something that you will be editing based on how you go about it. Second thing is iOS folder. The iOS folder is native iOS code that will be there. In this also you have a few files that you will be needing. The first one is the info.plist. So the info.plist is sort of again similar to Android, that will contain the permissions, any metadata or anything will get added here. So it'll still the app will still compile for an Android phone, but not for an iOS phone if you don't add the necessary permissions here. So anyone who is running their apps on an iOS or a MacBook, you need to make sure that any permissions that we have mentioned for the XML gets added into the plist folder as well, file as well. So these are the two main files you'll need from the Android and iOS. Finally, coming to the main meat of the project would be in your lib folder. So the lib folder, when you initially start, will have the main.dart, which has the usual access point. So if you see in sort of any, just to, in iOS, it's the info.plist. So in lib folder, you'll have the usually the main.dart. You can have you will be creating other folders as and when you build larger projects. Some of the sort of like folders you might see would be, let's say it's screens, it'll have different screens, let's say login, sign up, forgot password, enter OTP, home, chats, or anything. These are all these just the different pages of the app will come into this folder. This is not a specific format that you usually follow, but it's better to always make it into folders and not just files and keep it. Um, so screens, then you might have something like widgets, that is any custom widget that you might have created and you can reuse. Let's say custom button or custom app bar, which you want to use it in multiple screens, so you don't need to rewrite it every time. You just can save everything in this folder and call it as and when you need it. Then you might have something called services. So all API calls, everything will come into this. Any sort of database interactions connecting to Firebase, everything can be done in the services folder. Um, you might have sort of models that'll be basically classes. Let's say you have a sample app that connects patients and doctors. So by default, you know that a patient has, let's say, medical history, their gender, age, last visited, and the I don't know, the doctor that they want to meet and everything. These are all by default come under every patient has this information. So you can all consolidate all this information to one patient class. So models is a very common thing that every sort of user in that will use the application will have a model depending on what characteristics you build for that user. So um yeah, I mean, you can have multiple other things. Usually they have, I think, constants dot dart. So if you're using any constant, like, you should never in your main code, as in when you want to modularize your code, you should never use constant numbers or values in your code directly. Ideally, you create a constants.dart file and you add the variables such that, like, let's say if it's a API URL, it's a constant variable, right? So you create a variable called API URL and add the variable and always call that API underscore URL when you're referring to it in the uh, actual services folder or file or anything. So it can be, or it can be any value that you always use. Let's say you always want to maintain a 20 pixel distance between the app bar and the first title screen. So always mention it as um, distance between app bar and whatever title. So and then you use this value. Never use 20 directly. Um, yeah, I mean, these are just example things that you'll be doing in the lib folder, but this is where the meat of your application is. This is where you'll be writing all your code. And after that, test is just the test files that just get generated. Web you can ignore because Flutter, another good thing about Flutter is it's not only single code for Android and iOS, it's a single code for anything. You can build a Flutter application for a web browser. You can build a Flutter application for, let's say, if there was a screen on your fridge that showed the weather for today, you can build a Flutter application that goes on to that. So it is a literally cross platform and not just between Android and iOS. So depending on what you want, it'll create the folders for the native code accordingly. And finally, okay, after lib folder, the second thing that's the most important is the pubspec.yaml file. So the pubspec, like how we had manifest and info.plist for Android and iOS, your pubspec.yaml is something similar, but for a Flutter application. So the name of your app, the description, as in, so let's say you release a version, you know, when Instagram puts out updates, they have to release this, increase this version number. This plus one is for any minute changes. Otherwise, you change the last digit, as in when you make major changes. If it was a complete major change, then you make this into 2.0. If it is just bugs fixing, then it's you only change plus two, plus three. Um, any dependencies, let's say you want to install a separate package, that an external package, you will have to do it for calling APIs. You will have to do it for you might use a lot of different packages. Let's say you want to use the Bluetooth connectivity, then you will be using an external package. So all of that should go into your dependencies here. So here I've used a package called audio players. This is an external package. By default, you'll not see this in your pubspec.yaml. So this is where you keep adding. So it will be HTTP and the version number. So where do you find all these packages? You find it in a website called pub.dev. So pubspec.yaml has pub.dev. I mean, has all the packages, and for packages, you need to go to pub.dev. Let's say you want to find something that connects over Bluetooth. You just search for Bluetooth. You see BLE, kind of Flutter Web Bluetooth, different packages. The best way to see which one you should go for is you sort by the points that have, and the last when it was updated, make sure it still has sort of an active developer base, so anyone can make any package and you can upload it. By the end of this course, if any of you want to make a package and upload it to pub.dev, you can do that too. So that's why we need to always check how many downloads are there, is it still being maintained, how many pub points has it gotten, and everything, and then use these packages. So let's say you want to use BLE, Bluetooth Low Energy package. Bluetooth Low Energy, anything above 6.0.2. You put it out here. And then you go about it as in how it's given in the examples or installation README files. So the pubspec.yaml is for the name, description, the version, packages, external packages, and finally for the assets. Now, if you want to add any um, images into your application, so anything, any of these images, let's say you have a logo, you have audio, you have a video playing in the home screen, anything for Flutter, you ideally, this folder is not present in the basic Flutter project. Assets folder is not present. You create a folder called assets and put all your images, videos, audio files into this folder. So when you do that, you need to make sure this is present in your pubspec.yaml. So if you guys go on to your project, you will not see that line. This is how your pubspec.yaml is going to look like. So what you need to do is within Flutter, you need to add a line that says for any external assets, may all my images, videos, and everything, you're going to find it. You're going to find it in the assets folder. So let's say your folder name was images. You need to write it like this. You're going to find all the assets in this folder. So that is images, videos, audios, etc. Any kind of assets that need to be added. So this will include your logo of the app that you'll see in the home screen, the round version of the logo, the square version, because every Android uh, version differs. Everything will be stored only in this assets folder. You cannot store it randomly in the project and then expect it to find it. Make sure it's always stored in a specific folder and give it a name. And whatever name you've given it, usually the convention is assets, make sure to mention it in pubspec.yaml. But I think that's the main thing about the folder structure. Again, Meet is lib. Everything within it you will be able to write, edit, and make sure, see how your app gets changed. Second is pubspec.yaml. And finally, the permissions we need to add for both Android and iOS in these files, Android manifest.xml and info.plist. But that's about
Yeah,
it from my
Shubhra.
side.
Shubhra, some few
Structure, if anyone
questions. I have a few
has.
questions, Shubhra. So, suppose you have to build a simple one screen app, with whatever experience you have, how much time do you think it'll take to build a one screen app?
One screen app.
With, let's say, some text and some image, very basic app.
Yeah, it should take about 20 minutes.
Okay, I saw something on xylophone. Looked interesting. Can you quickly
Yeah,
build that app in front of us? Hmm.
yeah, yeah. So
So I'll
this
time it.
actually,
I want to just see how much actually time it takes. Hmm.
yeah, yeah, sure. So mm, mm, mm. Where's the? Sorry, just a second.
So what about this site, flutlab.io? What does it do? Hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, if my configuration right now has been a little got a little messed up with Flutter. So for that, I've used an online Flutter editor called flutlab.io. So if any of you are facing installation issues, please resolve them. Don't depend on this completely because there are premium features that you would need. But until then, you can use this website called flutlab.io. It allows you to simulate a complete Flutter environment on your web. So I'm just going to put this in the description. All you need to do is create an account and you'll be able to do it.
So is it taking time to load or what is it? Hmm.
I'm not sure if it's my net or.
Yeah. In the meantime, we can. Is it loaded?
Yeah. So, yeah, I've run it for, I've put for build. It'll take some time. So, I mean, let's say we wanted to create a, um, so the app that this has is it's a basic xylophone app. So that means it is just, so if anyone has seen a xylophone, it has about seven colors. That is the rainbow colors, the Vibgyor colors. And every time you like, it has these rods, and every time you hit a different color, a different kind of sound comes onto it. So the app that we tried building was a xylophone app that is sorry, yeah, the web emulator. So it's a xylophone app that just has a screen with seven colors, and every time a different color is clicked on, a different music plays from it. So I have seven note files, that is the .wav files that plays a different different music. At each of these files play a different music. So um, we have the main function. So would you prefer me writing the entire code or
No, no,
just
just
going
just
through it?
just give us the overview that these are the eight wave files in assets, and then you will have some eight images, or just you using RGB you will write the this one.
Yeah, no, it's just different colors.
Mm-hmm.
So this main file, we all understood that it's a entry point, and
Mm.
we'll go to the. So here it points to the xylophone class. I've written the xylophone class in the xylo.dart. So here, so let it load here the emulator. So so this is my main what do we say widget tree that we have. The tree that we have is the material app that was in the main.dart. In that we have the scaffold. In that I've not added an app bar for this place. Safe area. Safe area means I don't want it to cross this. Even though the screen technically when on the phone is this big, I don't want it to cross any go behind the back buttons on the screen or anything. So there's something called safe area. So within the safe area, I've made sure to have seven colors, that is red, orange, yellow, basically the WebGear colors, and they're all put into columns. So when we use the column widget, that means you're placing all everything that comes in the column widget, all the children, you are placing it one below the other. You're placing it vertically. So
So the keys, is it a class? Whatever you mentioned as keys, is it a user defined class?
so here it's a function that returns widget.
Mhm.
So it's not a class,
Okay, it's a
it's a
function.
function that
Okay.
returns. So I mean, not function might not be the right word to use, but so you can create custom widgets. So
Mhm.
in that, keys is a custom widget that I've created.
Okay.
So keys is a custom widget that's written here. Ideally, I can put this into another folder called widgets and reuse it every time.
Wait a
So it
minute.
returns.
Wait a minute. So Flutter has its own factory built widgets. In addition, the user, the programmer can build his own widgets, and keys is one
Correct.
such
Yeah,
widget. Okay.
you're right.
Okay. So what is the, can you explain what is the function of this widget called keys?
Yeah. So the keys takes in two parameters. One, the color of the key. So that's what we're saying red, orange, yellow. And second, the file which needs to play when the key is clicked on. So
Hmm.
as soon as this gets loaded, you'll be able to understand what I'm trying to talk about. So here we return. So as we mentioned, yeah. So this is how the app looks like. I am not sure if we will be able to hear. Um,
I think
were you able to hear it?
no. When you shared the screen, you have to share with audio. Can you stop sharing and share with audio?
Yeah.
When you share, I think share with audio is a feature that you will get. Share entire screen with audio. Yeah. Now we can hear.
Yeah. So here you can see that every color has a different note. So that's what these two parameters are in the widget, custom widget. So here we return a text, but expanded is just to make sure to fill every empty space here. Depending, so these I could have set like a certain what do you say length width to each button, but since Android phones, iOS phones all vary in their sizes, we need to make sure it needs to adapt to every phone that is possible, right? So we return something called expanded that makes sure the entire screen is filled. So each of these widget keys is a text button. So here we mention the color, background color to be the color that we get from the parameter. And on pressed, So whenever the button is pressed, we use the audio player dependency. So this is an external dependency. It's not inbuilt in Flutter. So I found it on pub.dev and used it. Um, it comes, initialize a player called audio player, and you set source to be the file name that we have passed on to the keys, and you play the file. So this is something that has been referenced
Yeah.
from the file of the player.
Okay, suppose I have this source code with me, and on Republic Day, I want to make a national flag of India with three colors, tricolor, and an
Mm-hmm.
Ashoka Chakra in between. And anywhere on the national flag, if I click, I should get Janagana Mana played here. So that should be an
Right.
easy thing to do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. So there are two ways you can do it. Either you just take a image of a national flag directly from the web and place it onto the screen, and then on pressed of that image, this the play place the file name as Janaganamana in assets, and play the file when it's pressed. Or if you want it with RGB, then we have to figure out how to make the Ashoka Chakra with widgets, but um, that is also another option.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. So, any questions for Shubhra? I think she's going to wind up her session. Any questions, any one of you? Or if you want her to repeat anything, she can repeat. Expanded meaning. Pranav is asking what is the meaning of expanded?
Yeah, so expanded in, so when we talk about, okay, let me share my entire, sorry. Yeah. So the reason why expanded is being used is when we so the any widget called expanded, when we use a column or a row, it's used to fill all the sort of available space in the screen. So just to get back to what a column and a row does is, when you use a column, all the children of that in that column will be placed like this, vertically down. So when you want to place something one below the other, you need to use a column. Whereas if you want to place something one next to the other, that is horizontally, then you use something called the row. So let's say you had three buttons sitting next to each other, then you make a user row widget and then place all the children under it. Then it comes right next to each other. So when you don't use expanded and we just use the column widget and put all the children a text box here, it'll all go crowd on the top from the so every widget is built from the top unless you use a center widget. So from the top it gets keeps getting added, but let's say you wanted it such that dynamically see the entire screen and how much ever available space is there, fill it up with my three widgets. So it would ideally come something like this.
So, if it is three widgets, each one will take one third the space. If it is four
Yeah,
widgets, it will take one fourth of the space, something like that.
yeah.
But it will
So
occupy the
it
entire
balances
screen.
the space between all multiple widgets and um, make sure there's no empty space. It takes up all the available space.
Okay.
So it remember expanded is always used only within a column or a row. You can't just use it randomly. So it's just to balance up all the widgets within that.
Okay. Yeah, any other question? Otherwise, thank you, Shubhra, for where was the audio stored in the xylophone program?
Yeah. So I have the assets folder, as mentioned. So these are sort of 7 files that I downloaded from the net, and I placed it down into the assets folder. And for me to access these files, I went into the pubspec.yaml and wrote these 2 lines that anything I'm placing in the assets folder, help me access it. Otherwise, these files would not have been loaded into the app at all. So I've placed it into the assets folder. You can place it into assets/audio also, but make sure to make the changes accordingly here.
Okay. Any other
And
question?
in Xylo.dart, I'm calling it here with red note1.w file, orange note2.wav file is called, and so on. Is that sort of
Yeah.
clear?
Abhishek, Deepa, Kamat Mayur, any questions? Pranav, Katyani, Radhika? Okay, thank you, Shubhra. Thanks for your time.
Yeah,
Asif,
assets is the folder where you add images, videos, audio, anything like that. Assets is a folder that you have to create by yourself. By default, a Flutter program does not add assets folder.
yeah,
Yeah, so instead of RGB colors, you can also download random images from the net and place it into the assets folder. And here, colors, instead of a color parameter, you could have put an image parameter, and you could have set the image instead of the text button. And when you press the image, the color comes. You have something called on tap that you can use.
okay. Okay, thank you, Shubhra. Mhm. Yeah, Shashank, can you take over? Mm.
Yes.
So last class, Shashank had demonstrated a few apps, so he's going to continue. Uh, the first app that we are going to do is, Shubha, can you stop sharing your screen?
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, everyone. I'll be dropping off.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, today's first app we are going to do is to show the time, current time in 8 different cities of the world. Okay, I had sent a email earlier. Okay, so it gives you an overview. So we know that if the time now is 10:15 p.m., the UTC or the Greenwich Mean Time is about 5.5 hours earlier, right? And then, as we go towards the west, the time starts decreasing. As we go towards the east, the time starts increasing. So we want to show the time in 8 different cities: Los Angeles, New York, London, Dubai, Bangalore, Singapore, Tokyo, Sydney. So uh, Shashank is going to build that app. So can you build it from scratch instead of showing it?
Uh,
Create,
yes, sir.
yeah, create 5C or something. Right? What was the screen? No, not 5.
Screen 3, I think, sir.
Yeah,
3.
3C. Yeah, build
Yes.
3C. Create screen 3C. So first what we can do is we can list the 8 cities. So You can just copy from the earlier the city names, and yeah.
Yes.
So he is building a stateful class, stateless.
Yes.
I'll give the name as city's clock. Okay. This part appears a little difficult, but when you start doing it, you will get used to it. So the first widget is a scaffold widget. It's like the railing around a building. You create the railing around the building before the building is painted. And then you can have two elements, app bar and body. App bar is usually the strip on the top. Now we have skipped app bar, we're directly putting the body. In the body, as Shubhra explained, you can have a column widget or a row widget. Shashank has started with a column widget. In the column, there can be multiple children. Okay, so since we have 8 cities, there will be 8 lines of output. Okay, so this output will be a text output, right?
Yes, sir.
So each section is called a container. Within the column, each section is a container, and the container contains a text. Right now, we can put it as Los Angeles. Then we'll write it. We'll
Yes.
put a create one more for New York. And one more for London. So we have hard coded 3 cities, and we'll try to show these 3 cities, the city names. Yeah, just build this app with these 3 names.
Yes, sir. So
Yeah. Now, how do we reach this app? We'll have to, from the previous screen, we'll have to click and reach this screen. Otherwise, the screen will be an isolated screen. We cannot reach this screen. So he's trying to build a navigation from the earlier screen to this screen. So this was one screen, this was the second screen. And from this screen, third, fourth. Yeah, can you see there are 3 cities? It's too small. So can you please increase the font size of all of these 3?
yes.
I can see 3 things, Los Angeles, New York and London. But let's increase the font size. So within the container, within the text widget, is going to increase the font size to, let us say, 20, the font size to 30. And the same thing for the other 2 text widgets. Font size 30 for New York and font size 30 for London. So let's see if we build this, what will happen. Yeah, very good. Okay, now can you display the current time in India? Somewhere, if you can show what is the current time in India.
Yes.
So it should show 10:22 p.m., right? Let's see what function will be
Yes.
used. Is using a function called datetime.now. Can you increase the font size? It's not possible to read. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, 10, 20, 22, 22 is fine. But can you show me the UTC time instead of local time?
Yes.
So 10:22 minus 5.5 should be 4:52. Okay, that's good. Now compared to UTC time, Los Angeles is 8 hours behind. So can you subtract 8 hours from UTC time? Maybe you can
Yes,
create
sir.
a variable for UTC and then subtract 8 from that,
Yes.
because we need to do subtraction of 5 for New York and subtraction of 0 for London. So a variable called dt has been created, and what gets shown under Los Angeles is dt minus 8 hours. So dt dot subtract 8 hours. So it must be still second, no, it is, no, can you increase the font size? Yeah, it's 8:53 in the morning, is it? In Los
Yes,
Angeles?
sir.
Yeah. Can somebody verify if it is 8:53 in the morning in Los Angeles? Find the time in New York also. It's minus 5 hours from UTC. So New York time is minus 5 hours. So that means dt dot subtract duration hours is equal to 5. Okay. And London will be subtract 0 hours. We don't really, technically we don't need to subtract, but sometimes when the daylight saving zone happens, we need to subtract. But right now it is subtract 0 hours. So London time is same as UTC time. UTC is synonymous with Greenwich Mean Time. Okay, that's the 0-degree meridian. Okay, now if we move towards east, after London we get Dubai. No, I think you have not shown London yet. Have you shown? Yeah.
Yes, sir. I see.
Okay, now can you show Dubai, which is plus 4 hours?
Yes, sir.
So next container is going to make with Dubai, which is plus 4 hours. So instead of dot subtract, he is now doing dot add and 4 hours. So that must be around 9 p.m. I think. Dubai should be,
Yes.
yeah, 9 p.m. correct. And next is Bangalore, which is UTC plus 5 hours 30 minutes. Bangalore is UTC plus 5 hours 30 minutes. So it should be 10:30 p.m. now. Something wrong?
Mm, I think in this phone,
Hmm.
then
Okay, so currently UTC to IST is 4.5 hours, is it?
yes,
UTC to IST is
6,
no, it should be 5.5 hours. Where is the mistake we're doing? See, Dubai is 9. No,
You're subtracting 5.5 hours while you'll have to add.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, correct. Yeah, thanks, Srinivas. Yeah, should show 10:30.
Yes, sir.
Did it build?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
It's
it's built. Okay. Yeah, next go to Singapore. Singapore is 2.5 hours from Bangalore, which means 8 hours from UTC. Singapore will be dt dot add 8 hours. Yeah, then Tokyo will be 9 hours. Will be 9 hours. Oh, Singapore is already gone into the next day. If you see the date, Singapore is already in 4th of February. Yeah. And then last one is Sydney, which is 11 hours from UTC. SYDNEY. That will be 11 hours. Okay, wonderful. But I don't see the time changing, Shashank. The time should change, right? So, what should be done to make it dynamic?
and to use the stream builder.
Okay, where instead of what?
So instead, so within column we can use stream builder inside it.
Yeah, please go ahead and do it. Because we
Yes.
want it to change, right? So here in this case, we just do the UI once and kept quiet, but we want it to change every minute, you know. So
Yes.
he is wrapping it with a stream builder. So this will be almost like an auto code generation. So he is setting the duration of change to 1 second. Every second it should change. So let's rebuild the, oh, this shows that there is a error. Whenever you get a red screen, it shows there is an error. So he's trying to navigate to our screen. This is the opening screen, so our screen comes much later. Not this, not this, not this. Yeah, there's an error here. Still there's an error, and it shows what is the kind of error. It says invalid argument must not be omitted when the event type is non-nullable.
Yes.
What was the error?
So here I given the type as object. That's it.
Okay, now if you see, the time is changing dynamically. Okay, so these are the time at 8 different cities of the world. So the key point here is we were able to first define the variable for finding out the UTC time, then we did an offset. Okay. So Shashank, instead of hard coding, we could have put all these cities in a list and then we could have used a for loop to iterate, right? Yeah,
Yes, sir.
no need to do it now, but we can, suppose instead of 8 cities, we want to show it in 20 cities, then we would have put a for loop.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I think.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Any questions on this? Any suggestions or any doubts? Did all of you go through the APK which was sent? We sent APK, the GitHub code and the YouTube recording. So today also we'll repeat the same 3 things. Any questions? Key pair value can be used. This is a question by KN. Yes, key pair value can be used. That is, he is asking Los Angeles -8, New York -5. Yes, key pair value can be used, Kirtan. And we can use that key pair value to, instead of 2 lists, we can have a map, and we can decipher the map and put it in the logic here. Shashank, his question was, we can have a key pair value for the cities and time. Answer is yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, any other question? Whatever Shashank did? Or any other question related to Flutter dot? Otherwise, we'll close the call today. We'll resume tomorrow. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Shashank. Thanks all of you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.